In 1969, Brian Jones died by misadventure, according to the official report. But I think that could also be a good term to describe his life. He might be one of the most volatile and conflicting characters in rock music history, not to mention the fact that his death might not be what it seems. So do you really know what Brian Jones was like? Because I bet you don't. It goes without saying that there would be no Rolling Stones without Brian Jones. He was the one who formed the group. He was the one who named them after a song by Muddy Waters. And he was the one who would tirelessly ring round venues looking for bookings before they had a manager. He was seen by most people, including his bandmates, as the leader. Jones wasn't only key in the formation of the band and the logistics behind it, but also in their music. He made his mark on so many of their most famous hits, including Paint It Black from their 1966 album, Aftermath.
I see a red door and I want it painted black.
Jones plays the sitar riff, which is a notorious earwig. My personal favourite contribution by him is his blues slide guitar on No Expectations. This was some of his last work with the Stones, as Beggar's Banquet was the last album he recorded with them, which is fitting for the sort of melancholy feel of the song. By the way, the YouTube copyright robots won't let me play too much music on these videos, but if you want the full experience with more of the music, take a look at my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/musicmongoose. So, Brian Jones obviously made a big impact on the band itself, but there are conflicting reports on him as a person. By many accounts, Jones had a troubled childhood. He could never seem to get his parents' approval, and in response he became more and more rebellious. By the time he'd formed the Rolling Stones at age 20, he already had 3 children by 3 different women. His parents banished him from the house, and their relationship was only mended years later when he was so heartbroken by a breakup with his girlfriend that they felt compelled to help him. However, despite his troubles, he's remembered by many as a kind and intelligent person. He always came across as very charming in front of the media, and people seemed to be drawn to him. For many in the Stones' early days, he was the main attraction. It's said by some that even Mick Jagger himself was taken by Jones's effortless appeal. Mick was in awe of Brian. He absolutely loved him. He wanted to be Brian because Brian had all the girls and all the fan mail. Now, Nick Broomfield, the director of a documentary about the life and death of Brian Jones, also had a positive experience with him. He met him by chance on a train when he was just 14 years old, and Jones had been kind enough to chat with him. I was surprised at how friendly he was. We chatted about trains, mainly. He told me that he loved trains, and the line we were travelling on, the Great Western, was his favourite. I just remember thinking how very middle class, well-spoken, polite and accommodating he was. However, some reports aren't so kind to Jones. As the Rolling Stones became more successful throughout the 60s, Brian Jones's personal life began to deteriorate. As early as 1963, some sources say that his bandmates no longer even wanted to sit in the same car as him due to how erratic his behaviour had become. That one is hard to verify, so take it with a pinch of salt, but there's often no smoke without fire, right? What we do know for sure is that Jones struggled with drug addiction, which started to make him very unreliable. By the time the Stones were recording Beggar's Banquet, the album that would be his last, of course, he was often turning up to recording sessions too stoned to play. That was if he turned up at all. His personal life wasn't much better either. He had a difficult and toxic relationship with one of his girlfriends, Anita Pallenberg, who saw Jones fly into sudden fits of rage and become aggressive regularly. Some reports claim he even got physical on multiple occasions. Other reports claim she was sometimes just as bad, and their toxic combination brought out the worst in both of them. Brian started seeing monsters falling out of cupboards. He started taking a mix of prescription drugs, Dexedrine, amphetamines, STP, Mandrax, barbiturates, all prescription. He started becoming aggressive. His sudden rages scared me, and I had to learn to stand my ground. She left him in 1967 for his bandmate Keith Richards, which added to the tension in the band, and this incident destroyed any trust that they had left and fueled a vicious jealousy. By the way, this was the breakup that had him in such a bad place that his parents had to intervene, that I mentioned earlier. Now, Jones's drug use got worse from this point. Pallenberg states clearly in her memoirs that she believed it was the drugs that caused his downfall. It all came to a head in June 1969, when Mick Jagger, Keith Richards and Charlie Watts visited Jones at his house to let him know he was no longer in the Rolling Stones. Less than a month later, Jones was found dead at the bottom of his swimming pool at his home in East Sussex. He was just 27 years old, therefore joining the infamous 27 Club of artists who lost their life at that age. As I mentioned at the beginning, the authorities ruled his death as death by misadventure, and the belief was that he drowned due to heavy intoxication. The autopsy seemed to back that as well. His liver was twice the weight it should have been, a telltale sign of alcohol abuse. That night, he had hosted a small party at his house where everyone had been drinking and taking drugs. One person in attendance was Janet Lawson, the girlfriend of the Rolling Stones tour manager Tom Keylock. What people don't know is that very strong hash cakes were made. That's why they were all stoned, and they didn't know what day it was. Jones was likely dead by 9 p.m. that night. However, some friends and family suspect that it wasn't actually an accidental death. Despite everyone being under the influence, they claim that it was possible he was murdered. And with every murder mystery, there's a suspect with a motive. That comes in the form of a construction worker, Frank Thorogood, who had been living at Jones's estate while he renovated the property. Apparently, he and Jones had been in a financial dispute the day of the death. This fact has been at the centre of many conspiracies surrounding Brian Jones's death. In fact, claims were made that on Thorogood's deathbed, he confessed to the murder. And this appears in two separate books by investigative journalists in 1994. Paint It Black, The Murder of Brian Jones, and Who Killed Christopher Robin, and that's a reference to Brian Jones's house, which was previously owned by the author of Winnie the Pooh. According to both books, Thorogood had told Keylock that it was me that did Brian. I just finally snapped, as he lay on his deathbed in 1993. Later, Lawson gave an interview in which she claimed Keylock had also asked her to go and check on Jones the night of the murder, as he was worried about the tension between Jones and Thorogood. It was her who helped pull Jones out of the water. Even Brian's own daughter wants the case reopened. According to Sky News, she thinks he was murdered. In 2009, investigative journalist Scott Jones handed over 600 documents to Sussex police relating to Brian Jones's death. The case was reopened as they reviewed this evidence, allegedly including claims that Thorogood's ex-girlfriend was found left for dead just 3 weeks after Brian Jones's death. She apparently claimed she was going to go to the police, but never did. 16 years on, and it's clear that the police didn't find the evidence convincing enough, but it seems to be the theory that won't go away. So it goes without saying that Brian Jones was a complex and mysterious man, sometimes charming, but with a clear dark side. His drug use destroyed his career with the Stones, and if we're to believe official accounts, led to his death. Another member of the 27 Club was Jim Morrison of The Doors. Although a mysterious album released 3 years after his death had everyone questioning that. This one is a fascinating story. Click over there to watch it next.